Welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so am I just down arrow? Yeah. Or just on here as well? The screen. I like the screen. Okay. Hi everybody. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking to you today about kind of really an area that I think just begs further consideration by us. So it's really more an exploratory conversation that I think we should really be starting to think about, especially as we move towards like this mobile first index and the use of mobile. So I'll give you a background to it, and you'll find it quite interesting and maybe food for thought. So the clicker works. Okay, so part of the reason why I came to thinking about this was I just finished a master's in my digital strategy, and for my dissertation, which I hope I've passed with, I'll find out on Friday, please God. I started to do a bit of investigation around a potential conflict between consumer choice theory, classic marketing strategy, and consumer behaviour and web crawling. Yeah, because I don't know whether many of you know me, but I'm a bit of an obsessive with Googlebot crawling, and into server logs and whatnot. But when I started my masters, I was also, if you like, introduced to the area of consumer choice. And I spotted this particular area that was problematic. So a little bit of background into choice. So some of the theory points to the fact that actually as humans, not just humans, monkeys, rats, all sorts of animals are naturally drawn to choice. We all like the whole red pill, blue pill type of decision. And these studies shown by, for instance, Bone et al. Found that actually, when presented with doors to go through, even if there is no benefit on the other side of the door, we all like to kind of have a choice. Yeah, we're lured by choice. I don't know whether anybody's ever done a little bit of the Facebook editor thing where they ask you what you thought of this. Did this place have street parking? Did this place, is this the right address, etc.? Facebook use this lure of choice very well there, because they always have it so that actually the next thing that you spot after you've clicked yes on something is another decision. Yeah. So we are kind of drawn to it as a species, if you like. But there's also a huge amount of evidence, massive evidence, that actually, and some of you will have heard of the JAM study that was carried out by Sheena Iyengar and Mark Lepper in 2000, where historically everybody had thought there can never be too many choices. What's the ice cream company that used to say, hey, we have thousands of varieties, Amazon, we have millions of books, etc. Now, decision making really points us in the region of understanding that we need fewer choices. Fewer choices lead to bigger sales, more conversion, etc. So this study by Lepper and Iyengar showed that actually, even though when you have 24 choices of jam to choose from, you draw a huge crowd, nobody buys. Yeah. So actually, fewer people choose when there's more options, and more people buy when you limit the choices to 6, say for instance. Which kind of supports an old theory from years back, George Miller, who said plus or minus 7. That's the kind of optimal amount of choices that a human can consider at any given time. So it kind of still all fits together even after all these years. And obviously then you've got like Barry Schwartz, not Barry Schwartz from Search Engine Roundtable, but Barry Schwartz, who wrote The Paradox of Choice and Doing Better but Feeling Worse. And basically, the more choices people have, the more unhappy they are with their decisions. And it actually goes further than that, because there's a lot of other research into this. There's a guy who's massive in the choice field called Ravi Dar, and he did a lot of stuff around similarity phenomenon. And ultimately what happens is the more complex the product, so for instance if you have a computer system with masses of RAM and all these different specifications that you could choose from, say on the Dell side, the more complex the choice is, the more chance people have of saying, oh God, I really can't be bothered with this. And also, it's even worse than that. I've covered this. I've said basically, decision regret kicks in as well. So if you choose from more things, you will have a greater tendency to actually be unhappy with the decisions that you make. I don't know whether you've ever been in a restaurant and you're overwhelmed by so many decisions and you always really want to eat what your partner chose. You know, it's like, it's overwhelming decisions, yeah? So keep it narrow. But further investigation of the whole consumer choice theory and the JAM study was then carried out by somebody else called Griffender. And they emulated that study and found actually, they said it's not actually the number of choices, it's more the features and attributes that we throw in there. So if you start to say, hey, these are the choices, but you could have, you know, size 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, you could have like long sleeves, short sleeves, you could have blue, red, green, blah, 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 sizes, attributes, features and attributes, yeah, brands. So the more choices, the more chance of abandonment. Because the reason for this is there's a cost of thinking, you know, the more you have to think about something, the more you have to balance up, well actually, is the decision, the reward, if you like, at the end, worth all this effort, the choice and the searching and the thinking and so forth, yeah. And, you know, we often sort of just think, oh, can't be bothered. When you're looking for holidays, there comes a point where all the pools start to look the same, all the hotels start to look the same, and you just think, I'll do it later. Okay, so also because we have all these like overloaded thoughts when we're trying to choose, we also, as humans, employ heuristics. So things to help us choose more easily. So some of them are first and best, some of them are maximizers and satisficers, and then the big one for me in this environment of online is elimination by aspects. So you narrow down, you know, to a first consideration set, and you keep eliminating things one by one until a single winner remains, and then you buy that, yeah. So we're all choosing strategies because it just makes life easier, yeah. And so then when we look at the e-commerce environment, those things, you can see that these are all catered for in a lot of the functionality on e-commerce websites. So we have, for instance, the faceted navigation and website filters. They cater for elimination by aspects, so we can narrow it all down. We have pagination, reduces the too much choice phenomenon. And then we have website filters, as I say, the same, elimination by aspects. And then things like sorting by price, by best, by most popular, etc., etc. It caters for this first versus best choosing strategies and potentially the maximizers and satisficers, because you can bet your bottom dollar that the maximizers are always going to be looking for the best, the finest, this, that, and the other. And the people who are looking for maybe satisficers will just think, oh, I'll just take anything. They have a criteria that they need to meet. Once that criteria is met, they'll just choose the first thing. Enter URL parameter-driven popular e-commerce websites that have lots of these things in place, consumer choice assisting functionalities to cater for human heuristics. Yeah, so we all come across Magento, blah blah blah, PrestaShop, WooCommerce. Some of these have really, really bad parameters that they throw in for everything. And ultimately we end up with. You remember Matt Cutts? He actually said these words, and I love it. Exponentially multiplicative URLs. So products times number of colours by number of sizes by number of this by number of different variations, bags, da 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 da. We've all seen those massively skewed URLs everywhere. It's where there are many intermediate paths to traverse before you get to worthwhile content, finding the same ultimate product. Yeah. And there's another name for this in some instances, but not always, yeah. So there's DUST, which is different URL, similar text. That's things like HTTPS and a HTTP version. And then there's exact duplicate content. It's quite a complex area when you start to take away the simplicity of, oh, it's duplicate content. There are many ways of defining it. Okay, so also at the same time as we've got all this, we've got the web constantly growing, getting bigger, bigger, bigger. Crawling the web, there's a cost per query, and you have to have efficiencies. Search engines have to be efficient. They have to detect near duplicates early, and there's part of the reason for that. There's a lot of research gone into it. These are some of the big names. Most of these are or have been at Google, and 3 of them were at Microsoft and then went to Google. So Fetterly, Mark Najork, I spelled his name wrong there, it's actually with a C, Mark Manas, Zif Bar Yosef, Monica Hensinger and William Pugh. So these are like the big names actually in this area. And why does it merit so much research? Isn't it just a case of like, well, that's nearly a copy of that, or that's a duplicate, well, we'll just filter all those. Actually, as Monica Hensinger says in this, she's done a huge amount of research, she's a big name in it, and you can see here this patent from Google that actually still keeps going, and they just keep like kind of tweaking it even into 2016. It's a real world ongoing problem because the web is changing, the way that we put content together is changing, and obviously there are still spammers out there looking to manipulate things, and things get tweaked. But as Monica Hensinger said, the problem is near duplicate content is more difficult to detect than exact, because exact is literally check the content checksum, fingerprint the same, filter it immediately. When you start to have like bits of this, bits of that, you know, it becomes very, very problematic. One big finding, and this is by Dennis Fetterly, is that a great huge saving for search engines is that actually near duplicates, they evolve very slowly. He did a study around some initial research called Spam, Damn Spam and Statistics, where they actually took, I think it was 11 million URLs that they crawled over a period of 10 weeks to see the evolution of how quickly they changed. Yeah. So were near duplicates still near duplicates of others 10 weeks later, and they found that actually they hadn't changed. This is part of the problem. When you end up with a site that's got a lot of thin and very near duplicate content, it's all right for search engines to crawl it less and less and less, because the probability of actually that having changed from being a near duplicate of something else is still low, you know. So this is where there's a big saving. So huge savings there. They don't need to visit as much, and they can reduce the downloading time, if you like, of these near duplicate pages. And actually about a third of the web is actually a near duplicate anyway. And also then some more research. This is really interesting, and this is kind of early days in near duplicate detection. Ziv by Yosef did this huge piece of research called Dust and Dustbuster rule crawling. So what happens is they detect and understand that actually it's small sampling, because obviously we know that sampling actually when crawling costs far less than actually crawling a whole website. So they just come in, do a little sample, next time little sample, just to test the waters of the quality of this section of a site almost, yeah. And they build rules and then reiteratively confirm or deny those rules with each crawl sample. We like to kind of see whether is it a good structure. And obviously some CMSs have things like they understand that, you know, sort and what sort and filter is and so forth. And it means that ultimately over time, once they detect that a site has got some big section of dust, they can swerve it and, you know, use those resources elsewhere. There's lots of different ways that near duplicate content is potentially treated. You know, there's things around shingling, which are built into vectors, and mega shingles and super shingles, like little snapshots of words together and to sort of cycle pictures. We know that ultimately there can kind of be only one. You know, Google will pick, and the search engines generally are in agreement on canonicalization. I don't know whether anybody's ever read or come across RFC 6596, which is actually the request for comments that's part of the Internet Engineering Task Force that was set up years ago, that actually is called the canonical tag, the canonical link relation. All the blog posts out there, you know, I'm not saying they're not right, but if you want to get it straight from the horse's mouth across the 3 search engines, read that RFC 6596, Internet Engineering Task Force. It's right straight out of the Internet Society. That actually talks a lot about the problems that they have with these duplicates. And also we have things like, one of the ways that they do it is content fingerprint list population. They take bits of words and put it into lists and spin the list to see where the crossover is. So lots of strategies that they're always developing to detect dust, if you like. And it's mostly stable. You know, a lot of the research now is being done in that area, and those researchers that I spoke about are actually moving on to a lot of stuff now on machine learning. So they've kind of nailed it, but it's still an area where actually they still need to keep tweaking it, as Paul Haar, who actually works with the Webmaster Trends team, quite senior, but you don't necessarily see him a lot. It's an area actually where they've pretty much nailed it, but they're still constantly having to like make it better. In fact, we know this because the raters guideline still ask human raters to pick up on dupes when they see them. Yeah, so we know it's still an area. And you know, back to that point about the dust, you know, the bad parts of sites. So part of the issue, obviously, is that when the sampling happens, when they go down a section of a site, there's a transitive nature understood to belong to near duplicate content. It's this: if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. In that, ultimately, if A and B are both kind of near duplicates, and B is a near duplicate of C, then ultimately the whole arm of the website is considered to be a near duplicate. Even though you might have some really good content down there, then crawlers are potentially not going to bother, because you know it's a transitive nature. The whole lot is rotten. And actually, this has kind of been confirmed a couple of times. This is an interview that Gary Yesh did with Eric Enger last year, and he was talking about if the part of a website is we've got a very strong like plant life section, and we think, oh, this is a great category, we'll maybe go and see that the subcategory is also very good. We will give that more depth of crawling, so we know that the quality is there. Yeah, so they just don't want to waste. The cost of the query goes up if you send, you know, crawlers down into like hugely rubbishy, you know, sites. Yeah. So I know I'm not got much time here, so I'm going to get this through this quickly. And we know it also causes issues. So near duplicate causes issues with internationalization. That was familiar this year at International Search Summit. This is the canonical link relation. Please have a look at that. But the problem is also there's lots of types of canonicalization, and people don't necessarily realise these things. Yeah, they all think it's just down to the canonical tag, and it's not. You know, canonicalization is kind of a verb rather than a noun as such. We all still hear this, you know, this old chestnut coming up in like years have gone by, but people are still believing this. In fact, I did a search of near duplicate URLs can cause, and the next thing that comes up is the next most popular query is Google duplicate content penalty. People are still believing this. It's not such a thing. So I did some research, and I'll be really quick here. I wanted to understand how SEOs handle near duplicate content and explore experiences with it. There was 300 and odd SEOs involved, and some interviews as well for qualitative with people who had 10 years at least in the industry and really were working really on sites that had at least 100,000 URLs. So what I found is that 50%, around 50% of SEOs thought that canonicalization was not advanced technical SEO. That should say not. So fewer than 50%. Yeah. Okay. 76% of them thought it was an easy concept to understand. Yeah. But 50% of them also said search engines kind of ignore their canonicals that they'd implemented. But there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding on what canonicalization actually was. So 47% of SEOs who categorise themselves as technical SEOs thought that rel equals next and rel equals prev was a form of canonicalization. Again, same thing. This time, go to RFC 5988 on web linking. It talks about rel next. It talks about the relationships. Rel equals canonical is not the same. It's a completely different. Rel basically means relationship. It's a relation. Yeah. So it's completely different. It's caused a lot of problems, that one in particular. A lot of people canonicalize the first page of a paginated series. Totally wrong. Yeah. It's only the view all. Lots would show that 302s, 301s, and 303s and 307s actually are canonicalization in a form. Some are stronger than others, but they're still canonicalization. hreflang, 64%, only 64 got it right. You know, hreflang is a form of canonicalization. You're saying this is the preferred version. There's still a lot of issues there. So, and I think a lot of people are misinterpreting near duplicates, and similars as well, as I said. There's a major issue with the documentation. Google's paperwork is all over the place. There's clustering and query clustering as well. That's a complex area that people don't seem to fathom. And some of the participants actually use different strategies to deal with it. Some were using internal link signals, but the majority were just saying like output more content. I'm not going to explore this bit too much because I've got to really get through this very fast now. Sorry. So the problem is, a lot of SEOs just say output more items in e-commerce, yeah. And a lot were kind of saying like output more than 24. You know, some websites were saying output more than 100 items, because obviously we all want to like flatten the architecture so that Google can only crawl this right really flat and fat, you know, for crawl optimization. And unfortunately then we have, you can read this for yourself, ultimately, you know, we're kind of saying spray all these choices at humans, yeah. And we also found that actually SEOs didn't have any concept really of consumer choice theory. So we've kind of got this bit of a conflict as such, in that SEOs are there trying to flatten architecture and optimize for crawl and search engines. I'm not saying we don't care about humans, we do, of course. But actually, we don't necessarily have an awareness of consumer choice theory that's going on the other side, yeah. Very few actually, if you look, actually, you know, only 37% were aware of task complexity in choosing. So we have this theory that's around choice, and we have these SEO issues as well. We have a conflict. We need to be more mindful, particularly when it's similar or complex products. We've got issues with mobile, we know this. Smaller space for choices as well. We have to make it easier for people. You know, 75% don't find things that they're looking for. And we've got a lot limited attention span times as well. And speed. Speed's a massive issue, obviously, as we know. We need to revisit things like labelling, take it back to information architecture, and labelling is a common ground actually, because there's a mere categorisation effect that actually humans and machines both look, yeah. Make it easy, and we have micro moments as well that we have to consider, that we have to build in. Different preferences. Takeaway from this is the most common mobile devices are 4 to 4.5 inches. We need increasingly to think of heuristics to help people choose, but at the same time for both search engines and humans. So, sorry. It's going to batter me.